Hey, Emmaus family. Good afternoon. Hope you're having a blessed day. Scott and Bryan here, and we want to give you an important announcement and talk through it. It's an announcement that I was planning to make this past Sunday, but I joined apparently a lot of people in not showing up at the church building this past Sunday. So making this announcement now over video, and then I'll announce again this coming Sunday. But I'm actually really excited to let people know that Bryan's going to be taking a 7-8 week sabbatical, about a month and a half to 2 months. It's going to include the Sundays of June 20th through August 1st. Why am I excited? Well, I'm excited because sabbaticals are just such a great way for pastors to really refresh and to meditate, to restore their souls, and it is such a blessing to the church when pastors can do that. It's a real sign of maturity of a church when a pastor is able to go off on sabbatical. So I think it's something that's been a long time coming. But it's not like it's an emergency. You're not like, I got to get a sabbatical and get out of here. It's nothing like that. But the timing just worked out really well this coming summer for him to take some time off. And so what we're going to do is a little Q&A, because sabbatical may be a new term for folks, a new idea to think about. And so we wanted to give some information about what it'll look like.
Yeah. So where does it come from? Like, what's the idea of sabbatical? Like, there's only two professions that I know of that have sabbaticals, and it's professors in universities and pastors. Yeah. So where does it come from?
Yeah, it's easy for people to think, boy, I wish I got a sabbatical, in my job. I don't work and blah, blah, blah. And so where do sabbaticals come from? Well, the Bible does talk about those who teach are worthy of double honor. There's the honor, certainly, of being paid for preaching the gospel. That was what Paul talked about. But there is even more honor due. And so you can think about, in one way, sabbatical being a part of that. But the real benefit, or the real reason why we see sabbaticals for pastors, is because the position or the job of being a pastor is really unique. Those of you who come on Sundays, all of us, when we show up, it's a great time to worship. It's a Sabbath. It's a day of rest. But for pastors, it can be, it's a day of work. It can be an exhausting day sometimes, depending on what's going on. There's a lot of expectations, and so there really is not a Sabbath day in the same way that the rest of us get, and that has an impact on a person's soul over time. So there's a need to restore because of the challenges of the job, but not only that. There's also a lot of expectations for a pastor when it comes to leading a church and vision and thinking through teaching ministries. And so a sabbatical is an opportunity to really focus on whether it's a doctrinal item, whether it's a vision casting for the church, meditating on certain scriptures, deep prayer. I mean, those kind of things pastors are not able to do on a week-to-week basis because of all the things that happen that pastors need to do week to week. And so providing an opportunity to spend that time is really what defines and is a hallmark of a sabbatical. And that's something that other professions just don't need.
Right. And sometimes I wish that others did, for sure.
That'd be great, yeah.
I did. There's a guy named Bob Goff who, is kind of a known author, and I heard him years ago say that he started this thing where he would actually plan, and of course he made a lot of money, so he could do this, but he would plan his whole year out so where he would have the summers off. So he almost built in, and he was a lawyer. Wow. So he built that into his schedule, especially when his kids were younger. And that was one of the things that he would do. But And I really, if you even think about the term sabbatical, the word Sabbath is in there. The Scripture sets up like the 7-day cycle where your Sabbath is on the seventh day, and then the 7-year cycle where you let the fields go fallow for a year, and so there is kind of that rhythm that's set up in Scripture that it is good for anyone if they can. Obviously, not everyone can, but to take that time and refresh and do that. And it's just great glad that was written into our bylaws when we changed the bylaws, that's a priority for us, and I'm thankful for that.
It's not just for you. I mean, in a way, we've built in sabbaticals for the leaders of the church, the elders and deacons.
Yeah, it's true.
We have to rotate off for a certain period of time. Yeah. So now we get a year. So.
Right. And some people call that the sabbatical year. Right. Right. I don't know if we call it that, but some churches, if an elder has rotated off for a year, they call that their sabbatical year. Yeah. So that is good. So what? It's funny because as I've talked to people about this, I've heard churches doing this like way differently. One church I heard about, the pastor had to fill out a 10-page thing of all the things that they were going to accomplish. And then I've heard of other things where they say, "Oh, you need to take 1 week for your family, 1 week for you, 1 week for your family, 1 week for this." Like everybody has different ideas. So I want to know from you, Scott, what do you and John expect from me during this sabbatical?
Ooh, expectations.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you asked that because I think expectations rightly crafted are really important for a sabbatical. For one, we don't want to overdo the expectations.
Right.
I know a pastor who had a very well thought out plan. It actually happened to be a time where they were pretty desperate for a sabbatical, and so they had this detailed plan, and basically none of it happened. There was a medical issue in his family, and it was the blessing of the Lord that he had the time off to care for his family, but none of that plan happened. And so the expectations were weighing on him, and he came off of his sabbatical almost in worse shape than when he had started it. And part of that was certainly caring for the family and the medical issue, but also a big part of that was the weight of the expectations. And so that is not helpful. That being said, you don't want to just kind of go into it and turn it into a 8-week vacation. Right. And so what we expect are really that you've kind of thought out what is it that you want to do with the time that you have. And we've had conversations about kind of your ideas and I know that there are elements of what you're thinking about that have to do with what does the future for Emmaus look like? What do you want to do personally for yourself and your own spiritual walk? And those kind of things are really, really helpful to know about and encouraging to think about what God would do through that. We really aren't looking for a bulleted list of
well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm definitely, we've listened to some, there's a 9 Marks podcast that was out recently about sabbaticals, and that was really helpful to think through. And they talked about just having one topic that they would think deeply on. And so I've been kind of thinking about, is there a topic that I want to just think deeply on? And a couple different things have come to mind. So that's what I want to do. Definitely want to take some time and just be alone for a couple of days, and obviously spend time kind of focusing on my family. We're about to send Micah off to college this summer or this fall, so it should be a good time to really kind of have some good family moments with them and do all that stuff as well. Take care of some things maybe just that have been untended to over the past couple of years. So
there's an analogy that was kind of helpful for me as I was thinking through this, and it was, my knee has been a little sore recently, so I was kind of thinking through, I could take a few days off and just sit and not do anything, and the rest would probably help my knee feel better. That'd be kind of like vacation. But the other thing I could do is I could go ahead and go to physical therapy. And while I would still have some rest, I'm also going to do some exercising, some work to help my knee out. And the advantage of that is, I heal, but not only that, I strengthen the muscles around that knee so that I can maybe even do more intense work than what I've previously been able to do, and it really creates an improvement for me. Now, I'm not going to physical therapy, so please don't ask me if I'm doing that. That's not what I'm saying. But I
so
think
you're saying do as I say, not as
that's
I do.
right. Yeah. But the things you're saying make sense in terms of being able to come back with some of those things that are a burden for you shed, but also to come back with a fresh soul. Kind of an idea of where we're going as a church. Again, I go back to saying this. It's a real blessing for us, for you to be in that state.
Well, I'm very thankful. I was telling somebody recently how there have been times where I've been exhausted in ministry, and I'm not exhausted with ministry right now. I'm kind of physically tired. I've had a rough construction week last week and things like that. So, but emotionally, I feel like I'm in a good place to go on a sabbatical. It's the wheels aren't coming off of my life, I don't think. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that. Here's a question though: what should the church members expect? How are things going to look on Sundays and then during the week? That's probably a good thing to address.
Well, there are some things, some plans in motion, certainly, but I can say that the church body can help with this as well. Preaching, what's happening with preaching. Well, John and I will be filling in on the pulpit, but we do have a couple guest preachers. Leonard Lou will come by, and then an elder from Grace, a friend of mine, Kyle LeClaire, will fill in one Sunday. So, and then worship team, they'll be covering music. We'll have a guest on a couple Sundays, but and then there's everything that happens during the week that you're doing, and that's where we really need help from other people. It's going to take several of us to fill the shoes, that you're leaving, and so a couple days a week I'll be here in the church building. I'm going to plan to be here at least part of a day. I'm not quite sure what days those are yet, but if someone needs to come by, I'm going to try to coordinate it with Julie, and so that at least I can be here for a little bit. But when and there's other details we're thinking through, but if you have a particular question, like how is this going to get covered, please let John or I or one of the deacons know about that question. It'll help us to either answer it and let you know, or maybe there's a detail we need to think through. And so certainly would appreciate any feedback like that. The other thing I was thinking too is there's the pastoral care aspect, not just the what's on your to-do list, but being available to care for someone. And so what I'd ask everyone is, if something like that were to come up, please let John or I know, and then also let your deacon know, because there are people who will want to care for you, and so we want to be there to do that if something were to come up. Yeah,
it's great. So, and I'm sure there'll be more details, and Scott's going to share this similar thing on Sunday morning as well. That's the plan anyway, unless more kids get sick. So there was something else I was thinking of too, but maybe it didn't need to be discussed.
Well, I do have one other thing that I think may be a question for folks, because sometimes during a sabbatical, people are like, "Does that mean I can't talk to the pastor? Like, what if he shows up?" And so I do want to address that, because I think it's an important thing to think about. First of all, Bryan is still a Christian brother, right? He still has to be a Christian, and so we should interact with him. We should talk with him and things like that, and as we would with anybody else. I think what would be most helpful is to not come on Sunday or another day of the week with expecting you to be pastor. Right. So if there's something, a burden you need or something you want to ask about, come ask John or I or one of the deacons, so that Bryan doesn't feel that kind of, sometimes the tension that comes with those expectations, you know. And that's any of us deal with expectations, it can cause us to tense up. And so what I would ask people is still interact with Bryan as friends, brothers, sisters, in Christ, but help him shed that kind of pastor duty that he has on a normal week.
Yeah.
And not bring expectations to bear.
Yeah. And most Sundays I probably won't be
Yeah.
at the church. We'll probably be visiting a couple other churches in the area, just kind of maybe connecting and my brother-in-law's a pastor at a church. I may go visit his church. And, and then, but we probably will be around VBS week just because that's such an important week and our kids love it. And so that's and that's usually a week where I don't have a lot of stress anyway because I'm not given a lot of responsibility for VBS. So thankful for the group who's doing that. So, but yeah, on a friendship level, like if you would normally text or call me as a friend, and don't stop that just because, there's most conversations I have with people who are texting as friends. I don't feel the burden of like I'm in pastor mode right now. So that's one of the things I love about our church. So yeah,
cool.
If you have any other questions, feel free to talk to me about it before I leave, before I'm gone. No, or talk to John or Scott, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for stepping in and helping out. Mm-hmm. Thanks to John for filling in. John's had a rough season. Yeah. He needs a sabbatical too from his job. I wish we could, talk to some powers that be and get him a sabbatical. But so I'm really grateful for our church and for this family that God's called us to be a part of. So 9 years, it's been seems like yesterday, but lots happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, it's as you said, it's good timing for it. And if anyone's wondering, it is, you accumulate sabbatical time every year. Mm-hmm. So if you decided that it's really helpful to take that sabbatical time each year, great. Mm-hmm. That's something that we'll probably be able to plan for more as we get used to what this sabbaticaling thing looks like into the future. I know that was a question someone had at one point, but it's not necessarily going to be every year. We'll see how the Lord guides and directs that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for watching.
Yeah, and, thanks everyone.
See you Sunday.
God bless.